They said money could buy everything, but for one wealthy family, it couldn't buy the one thing their son needed most: the ability to walk. Born into privilege, the millionaire's son had lived his entire life confined to a chair, surrounded by doctors, expensive treatments, and endless sympathy. Despite the family's fortune, nothing ever changed. His days were marked by silence, loneliness, and the quiet belief that he would never stand on his own 2 feet. Then came a change, one expected. A new maid was hired, a woman with strength in her spirit and kindness in her heart. She wasn't just there to clean the mansion halls. She noticed the boy no one else truly saw. While others tiptoed around him, she spoke to him directly, treating him not as a patient or a burden, but as a person with dreams waiting to be heard. Her presence began to shift something inside him. With her simple encouragement and quiet determination, she introduced an approach no doctor had ever tried before. Slowly, the impossible started to feel possible. But just as hope sparked in the boy's eyes, an unexpected moment turned everything upside down, leaving everyone stunned at what might happen next. The boy's life had always been carefully controlled. From the moment he was born, his parents had poured their fortune into specialists, rare treatments, and the latest medical equipment. The mansion was filled with luxury, but it often felt more like a hospital than a home. His father, a busy millionaire businessman, believed money could solve anything, while his mother clung to hope in quiet desperation. Yet despite all their efforts, their son remained unable to take even a single step. Over time, the family stopped believing change was possible, and the boy himself accepted his fate in silence. When the new maid arrived, everything felt different. She wasn't from their world of wealth and power. She carried herself with humility, but also with an inner strength that no one could ignore. Instead of seeing a fragile boy, she saw a young man who had been hidden behind layers of fear and pity. She noticed the way he looked longingly at the garden outside, the way he clenched his fists when no one was watching, as if wishing for more. Her quiet observations grew into small acts of encouragement. But what truly puzzled the family was the secret routine she seemed to share with him, something no one else was allowed to witness. Late at night, when the mansion grew quiet and the sound of footsteps faded, the maid would gently roll the boy's chair into a corner of the study. It was there that their secret began. She spoke to him in a way no one else had ever dared, reminding him that his body was more than a diagnosis. She encouraged him to try small movements, to believe in muscles everyone else said were useless. At first, the boy resisted, afraid of failure and humiliation, but her steady presence chipped away at the walls he had built around himself. What the family didn't know was that she carried her own story. Back in her hometown, she had seen her younger brother face a similar struggle after an accident. The doctors had given up, but through patience and persistence, he found strength again. It was this memory that fueled her determination, though. She never spoke of it openly. The tension grew as the father began to notice changes in his son's mood, sparks of energy, quiet smiles, a newfound determination. Suspicion replaced relief. He questioned the maid's influence, worried she was filling his son with unrealistic dreams. Meanwhile, whispers among the mansion staff hinted at something extraordinary unfolding behind closed doors. The boy's secret sessions with the maid grew bolder. What began as simple stretches turned into shaky attempts to shift his weight, to press his feet into the ground even if only 4 seconds. Each night was filled with effort, sweat, and whispered encouragement. The maid believed he was stronger than anyone thought, but she also knew one wrong step could crush his fragile confidence. Meanwhile, the father's unease grew heavier. He had built his empire by controlling outcomes, and now something was happening in his own home that he could not explain. He demanded answers from his wife, from the staff, even from his son, but all he found were evasive looks and half-truths. The more he pushed, the more restless the house became. The mother, torn between hope and fear, began sneaking glances at her son, noticing how his hands no longer trembled when he tried to grip the edges of his chair. Rumors spread quickly. Some servants whispered that the boy might actually be changing, while others warned it was only an illusion that would end in heartbreak. The mansion's atmosphere turned heavy, every hallway filled with unspoken questions. Then, one evening, the father caught sight of something through a half-open door, something that left him frozen, unsure whether to believe his eyes. Through the half-open door, the father saw his son gripping the maid's hands, his legs trembling beneath him. For the first time in his life, the boy was upright, sweat dripping down his face as he fought to balance. The father's breath caught in his throat, hope and fear colliding all at once. But before he could step inside, he noticed something else. The maid was whispering words he couldn't hear, almost like a mantra, urging the boy forward. It was not just strength she was giving him, it was belief. Instead of relief, suspicion flooded him. Was she trying to replace the role of the doctors he had paid millions for? Was she filling his son's head with false promises that would end in devastation? His protective instincts turned to anger, yet he couldn't ignore what he had just seen his son standing, even if only for a moment. The tension deepened when, the next morning, the father summoned the maid. To everyone's shock, she didn't deny what she was doing. Calmly she said the boy had more strength than anyone realized. Her quiet defiance unsettled the entire household. The mother clutched her pearls torn between loyalty to her husband and the undeniable hope flickering in her heart. The mansion braced itself. Sensing a storm that was about to break, the father's anger boiled over as he demanded the maid stop her dangerous games immediately. But before she could answer, the boy, trembling with determination, spoke, louder than he ever had. He begged his father to watch just once before dismissing everything. Silence filled the mansion as the maid steadied his hands and whispered for him to trust himself. The boy's legs shook violently, his face pale with effort, but he refused to give up. Inch by inch, he rose from the chair, standing taller than he ever had in his life. Gasps echoed through the room. The mother covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face, while the father stood rooted, disbelief and awe battling inside him. For years he had spent his fortune searching for answers, and yet here it was his son finding strength through faith and persistence. Not medicine or machines, but just as triumph swept through the family, the unexpected twist struck. The boy stumbled forward, not into the maid's arms, but into his father's, clutching him tightly. In that single moment, the father realized the miracle was not only physical, it was emotional. His son had never needed just treatments. He had needed someone to believe in him, and now, with the maid's guidance, that belief had finally become reality. The mansion felt different after that night. The boy's first steps were shaky, but they became a symbol of something much bigger than the family's wealth or power. No longer confined to his chair in silence, he began spending his mornings in the garden, practicing with the maid's patient guidance, while his mother watched proudly from the window. His father, once skeptical and consumed by control, slowly softened. He realized his fortune had blinded him to the simplest truth that sometimes healing begins with faith, love, and determination rather than money. The maid's role in their lives grew deeper. She was no longer seen as just a worker in the household, but as someone who had restored what years of doctors could not. She taught the boy that progress was not measured by how far he could walk, but by the courage to try again each day. The staff whispered less now, choosing instead to admire the quiet miracle unfolding before their eyes. In the end, the family discovered that strength is not only physical, but also emotional. The millionaire's son found his steps, the mother found her hope, and the father found his humility. And all of it began because one woman chose to believe when no one else would.